everyone, James Reeves. Thanks for tuning into the program. This is a very special episode because I'm here with a personal friend of mine, Mr. Bryan Carpenter. Bryan, thanks for being on the program. Bryan, most of you may recognize him. He was the expert witness for the prosecution in the Alec Baldwin trial, so we're going to talk about that today. Now, Bryan, to just kind of lead in and get straight to the point, do you believe Alec Baldwin was negligent in this case?
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about your background.
So it's funny. A lot of times I'm asked that question, right? And I fall back to my youth in small town Mississippi, where I would go and I would work and I would come home and I would try to tell the story of where I'd been and what I'd seen. And I relate it to black magic. It was like I was casting some kind of spell. No one understands it. No one gets it unless you've some way been there and done it. Training, actual security contracting, tactical law enforcement from here and there. I'll bounce back and forth into that. Never really found a home there. I wanted to, but it just kind of wasn't my thing. I liked the other side of that, the travel, the adventure, the excitement, and I stuck there. Ended up, my last, I guess, official thing that I did, Jeff Wynn was the commander of the SOD, ironically, right here in New Orleans, Special Operations Division, SWAT commander, and Jeff was working for a company, I believe it was Tiger Training Group at the time, and I and he were at the same Mount City training at the same time. Made friends, and then skip forward years. Katrina's on its way to hit the coast of Louisiana. I called Jeff. I said, hey, can I come down there and hang out with the guys? You know, no big deal. He goes, yeah, come on. The city's cleared out. It'll be fun. Just come out and say hey to everybody. Who knew, right? Get down here. Katrina hits. Get commissioned officially by Eddie Compass onto the SWAT team. Worked on TAC Unit 3 through Katrina, through Rita. And then when the time was over there, I kind of was like ready to get out of it. I have a good buddy, Nigel Thomas. He's a SAS, former SAS, and owns a company called Blue Mountain Group. He was getting out of it. I really respected him, and it was just time, right? I didn't have anything much to do, and a buddy of mine said, hey, you want to do some bodyguard work for an actor? And I was like, I don't think so, you know? Through reluctance, but continuing perseverance by Joe, I went and talked to him, and it ended up being Denzel Washington and his crew. Really squared away, nice group of people, nice, very respectful he was, and everyone on his team was. And I worked with them for a while, and when I got through, they wrote me a very nice letter that I used as a stepping stone to enter into the world of film in Hollywood. And I always say this, it's the most difficult job in the world to get into because so many doors are closed unless you know somebody, very much nepotism, right? But it's also the easiest if you know somebody. And so it's a duality there. And that's where my film work started.
And you've been an armorer on many films. Name a few that maybe stand out to you that you enjoyed working on.
There was this really apocalyptic movie that I really liked the director on it called The Domestics. I liked it as an armorer because the director, he loved guns, and we had a mix of everything from modern guns to World War II to you name it. And I had a really good time with the lead actress on that show, training her how to use MG42s and 8mm Mausers, German Mausers, and all this stuff. So that was a good one. We did some tactical training for Jack Reacher, Never Go Back. We did Cloak and Dagger. We did Queen of the South was a fun one. We did this episode of Queen of the South and worked with that, and that was a lot of heavy gun action in that. And some of those, you know, were really fun because you got good crews and people that listened and tried to do it the right way.
How long have you been an armorer?
Wow. Let's see. I would say from about, and I may be a little bit off, about 2008, somewhere around there, 2008, 2009 when I started in.
Been a while. Let's say I'm not familiar with the Rust shooting. I'm not familiar with the Alec Baldwin incident. What happened?
A live round was allowed onto the set of the movie. It made its way into the actual firearm the lead actor was using at the time, and the lead actor pointed that weapon in a direction and discharged it, striking the director of photography and the director himself.
That's led to criminal investigations, a criminal trial, civil investigation, civil trial. How did you get involved?
Well, I initially heard of it because, strangely enough, one of my very good friends, who's a stuntman, Aaron, was working on I think it was Jessica Alba movie right down the road. And he called me immediately and he said, hey, something bad just happened on the Western up the road from here. And he said, I don't know what it was. So that's when I initially heard about it. And not a lot of people calling me because it was an issue like that. That just doesn't happen. I mean, it doesn't happen for multiple reasons. It's lots of safeguards that should be in place. I was thinking that that wasn't accurate. I was thinking that maybe the plug blew out of the end of the gun, or
There's no way a Hollywood armorer would allow this to happen.
I mean, no, I was like, there's no way that, or somebody, somebody had a gun on set. I mean, you never can tell. I did not believe at the time, because I didn't know, but just my
You didn't believe
blush.
what happened.
Yeah, I didn't believe it. That's right. I didn't believe first blush. No, I didn't. And it wasn't until I got contacted by the attorney for Helena's husband at the time to ask me if I'd come in and help them sort it out, because there's a very, very small percentage of people in the film industry that do true real deal armorer services and understand that world and also understand film. And then you start taking that and adding on, does that same person have real world experience? The list gets even smaller. And then you start taking that and add it on, does that person also produce or have a production company? And then the list gets to a few names literally worldwide. But it was a short list of people to call, and that's when I initially got reached out to and started getting actual information, I guess behind the scenes, if you will, of what really went down.
You testified as an expert in the criminal trial of Alec Baldwin. How did you end up as an expert in that case?
So initially, I was reached out to, as I said, by the civil attorney for the family, and I traveled out to Bonanza Creek Ranch, which is where the incident happened. It's a movie town for Westerns right outside of Santa Fe. Shannon and her husband run it, super nice people, just really good people right there. And they've been doing that. A lot of the Westerns you've seen were shot at Bonanza Creek right there. So I went out there, looked at the crime scene, which at the time was just civil, trying to figure out what's going on, and tried to ascertain every bit of the evidence I could from talking to people, etc. Went back home, talked to the attorney a few more times, and then it kind of died on the vine. Never heard from anything on that end. My understanding that they came to a deal between the husband, Helena's husband, and the Rust movie, Alec Baldwin, etc., and it kind of just no more contact. And I was like, okay, well,
it's settled.
Yeah, settled. Did what I needed to do, and that's that. Then, out of the blue, I received a call from the district attorney's office in Santa Fe. Mary Carmack Altwise was the DA. Jennifer Paget was working, I believe, in the office as well, assistant DA in the office. And the two of them reached out and wanted to know whether or not I would be interested in coming on board to act as an expert, again, to sort through what happens on a movie set, how it happens on a movie set, what were the roles of the armorer and the producer, etc. And they had a special prosecutor assigned to it, Andrea Reeves. And Andrea was spearheading this, right? The investigation, the prosecution, and they were going to look at whether or not they were going to officially charge the armorer and possibly other members of the crew. That's how it started. Mm-hmm. They sent me information, and I started digging through it and doing what any investigator would, looking through it from the start to the finish to make my findings.
Let's talk about that investigation. Mm-hmm. Take me from the beginning. Where'd you start? Mm-hmm. And bring me all the way through to the end. Where'd you end up, and what was your conclusion?
Well, the first thing I wanted to look at was, and this is something that's, it still bugs me to this day, there are three things on a movie set that can kill you: stunts, guns, and special effects. Production crew or the above-the-line staff many times will rush those things. Explosives, guns, stunts, let's get it to time. So a joke in the industry, and it's safety first, time permitting. The fact is, many times people are hired incorrectly to save money. They're gonna get the cheapest person they can do to do the job. Now, they won't do that with hair and makeup. You can say, oh, we got this mess of a hair right now. They'll bring hair and makeup in and literally shut a production down for 30 minutes fixing hair on the day of, right at the moment, right? But you can have, 5 pounds of explosives set to blow a building in a charge, all wired and ready to literally, and I've seen this, ready to be detonated, and they'll be like, I need 5 minutes more, and they're like, you got 1 minute, you got 2 minutes, right? So it's a very disproportionate safety versus what really is important versus what they think is important. So the first thing I started looking at was who got hired and who hired them. which is generally the unit production manager, UPM. What decisions did she make based off her hiring, and where did she look at the right places? And if not, why? And it's generally an incentivized reason, because there's a lot of bonuses given out at the end if you don't go over budget, or you do this, or maybe it's just another job. You stay under budget, you save us this much money, then you'll get the next 4 shows we're doing, that kind of thing, right? So that's where I started. I started with, let me see who was hiring, who they were hiring, and why they hired them. That was the beginning.
And what'd you find out?
Well, I found out that there was an armorer that was contacted previously prior to Gutierrez being hired. The first armorer told him his rate and what he needed, and they were like, no.
Too expensive.
Too expensive. And that's the way film is a lot. You've got, you got ISS, and you've got all those guys out there that have been doing it professionally, a gun room. I think you've been there.
Yeah, Larry Zanoff. Great guy. Yeah, top-notch operation.
Oh my God,
the best.
It's hard to describe their gun room unless you've been there, right?
Right. Oh, it's incredible.
It's incredible.
But we do have a video on TFP TV at Independent Studio Services if you want to check that out. Sure.
When I went in there for the first time, I was like, I want to go look at this gun, because a lot of the tech guns that they put in sci-fi movies, I'm like, why don't they build that? So it's just amazing out there. But that is another level of professionalism.
Right.
They do all the big
Top
shows,
notch.
top notch.
Yeah.
And then you've got your tier 2 your shows that fall down a little bit beneath that, and they're still between $14 million and $30 million. You gauge it by price, and the unions gauge it by price, because that's how much they involve themselves with it a lot of times. Then you've got a next tier down, and you've got a group of armorers that do that, right? And they're good, solid. And then you've got the really B-Western, and I'm not knocking those shows, because a lot of those are good, and a lot of those, are something you're like, hey, wow, did you see so-and-so show? That was awesome right now. But it's like...
Navy SEALs, Somali pirates.
Yeah. And not knocking any of them, because some of them may be the most outstanding, and they make a lot of good money doing that, because they make that circuit. That's their circuit, right? So
you find that they reach out to this one armorer, and he says, they say, no, you're too expensive, or they decline for whatever reason. Right. Then what happens?
And then somewhere along the line, they get Gutierrez Reed, and she came in, submitted her resume, and was hired. And here's the caveat to this. You don't cross-craft. The union hates it. It's a big no-no. You don't give somebody a job as this and this.
Sure.
You give somebody a job in props, and you give them a job as an armorer, it is impossible. Props is one of the hardest jobs on a movie on set. I mean, it really is. It's nonstop go, no breaks, no nothing. And armor, as you know, is so important because it's the safety of another person's life. You're literally in charge of making sure no one gets hurt. And you can't do that job and focus on it when you're also doing props work. So that was the first thing that happened. She got hired.
She being who?
Gutierrez Reed. Yeah. So she was the armorer for the show.
And she was also being assigned other tasks.
Yeah, Hannah.
Other than Hannah was being assigned other tasks. Props?
Props. Yeah, she was working props.
And that's unusual.
It's not unusual on low budget movies. It's wrong, and it shouldn't be done ever. But it's not unusual.
Because she's dividing her focus.
That's right. She's dividing her focus on it.
And it should be on safety.
That's
Number
exactly
one,
right. And, it's one thing if you tell your armorer, which it's a no-no for any professional, but if you've got a low-budget show and they're like, hey, we need you on because we're going to be handling guns, every once in a while, we've got a revolver out that guy's going to pull out and shoot one round, or we got this, that, and the other. If it's super small and you can, take it and run with it and then help props, some armorers might take that job because it's good pay. But when you've got a movie that's got lots of guns out there and tons of moving parts and people have got them shooting all the time, you need not just one armor, you need multiple armors. In my opinion, they should have had 2, possibly 3 armors on that show, but minimum 2. And certainly not diverting their time between 2 jobs.
So one problem we have is that the armorer that was ultimately hired, she had more than one responsibility.
That's right.
What else did you find in your investigation?
I found out that she had little to no experience. And when I say little to no experience, she had, as far as I can remember now, she had 1 show previous to it, and I don't think she made it through the whole show before she was let go or left or something. There's back and forth on that, right? So again, you don't hire an armorer to work on a gun-heavy movie with no gun experience. And I'm going to go forward to this. I don't care what anybody says, age makes a difference because age comes with experience if you do it. I'm not knocking a 21-year-old, but a 21-year-old that's only done things a couple times.
She was 21.
Well, I think she was 22 or 23 at the time.
Okay, so she was
early 20s.
very young.
Yeah, very young.
Yeah.
You're not going to have the experience that a 35 or 40-year-old person has been doing it or older. I mean, I don't care if you're who you are. Experience is something you have to have. And there's several things in life that experience matters so much, but when it comes to safety and training, and anytime you're in charge of somebody else's life, that experience matters even more so than in certain things, like if I'm rebuilding a boat engine, right?
Sure.
So that was the second thing that I found. She had almost no experience whatsoever. Okay. And you compile that with her age and combine that with her dual crafting, cross crafting, it was a recipe for disaster right off the bat right there.
And how did this disaster occur?
We're not getting into the Baldwin side of it, just the armor side of it. We could, again, make your video 5 hours, and you don't want that knowing your audience.
It's looking like it's getting there, ladies and gentlemen.
But I can say this much. Skip forward on all the grievous mistakes that happened. And some of them just stick out with me so much, like leaving weapons loaded and handing them off to stunt performers, which any stunt performer, they'll tell you, if you ask them, can they fly a rocket ship to Mars? They'll say, oh yeah, I did it last week. Not true, okay? So not every stunt performer is safe to handle a gun, and even if they are, you don't leave guns with them. NDs on the set.
There were NDs on set?
Yeah, absolutely.
Negligent discharges.
Yeah, negligent discharges. And for example, she left a loaded lever action rifle with one of the stunt performers, and he goes in the holding tent and sets it off. I mean,
is that common in Hollywood, or is that?
That's not even common on low budget, like I'm making mistakes movie.
So this was already before we even had the incident. We'll say the incident.
That's right.
There were already a bunch of mistakes that should have been. Someone should have intervened and said, stop right here.
Well, absolutely. And that gets more to the next part we're going to talk about. But with her, absolutely. One, you don't leave guns in the hands of performers in between takes. People were filtering all over set with guns. They were pointing guns at kids. They were pointing guns at each other. They were handing guns off to hair and makeup people. It was just, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And there were negligent discharge that occurs. The prop master had a negligent discharge. I mean, it was just, and it see, that's when you start thinking, if you take a job and you say, I'm going to be in charge of James Reeves' safety, right? And then let's say I just get into it, and then I realize, oh, I'm way over my head. I'm way out of my league. I'm going to get him hurt. I need to step back. And you still don't do it? That's on you. I don't care how old you are or what you are, Obviously, that did not occur. Then the errors that occurred up to that, at any given time, she should have stepped in and said, we need to stop this right now. Either I'm woefully unequipped for doing this, or the production is not allowing me to do my job properly. Anyway, it was her responsibility at that point as an armorer from her side to do her part to make, I guess, the right decisions, if you will, and bring it to the right people's attention, or just stop and say, I'm not doing it. The camera crew did it. The camera crew walked off a day before the incident. Did you know that?
No, I had no clue.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this about these negligent discharges, these incidents that occurred on set. Is this your opinion, or were people?
No, this is fact.
It's absolute fact.
This was testified in court.
Okay, that was established as fact that there were negligent discharges, that there were accidents, incidents.
That's right, and even moreover, Carrie Morrissey, the DA at the time we made it to trial, I played a bunch of videos in court, and I commented on the videos, and I mean, you've even got things such.
And
as,
I watched that on court TV. It was splendid. Yeah, I loved it. Yeah.
Did you see where Hannah had the gun to her chin, the double barrel shotgun? She was just propped up on it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, even stuff like that.
Right.
I mean, it's like insane. You don't handle a weapon like
Sure.
that. If you're handling a weapon like that, you do not know how to handle a weapon.